Welcome back to Footballology. So it's that time of year again. I get to hand out my individual offseason grades for every NFL team. I know a lot of people like to do draft grades or anything like that, but for me, I just like to look at the whole offseason encompass. That's coach firings and signings, player free agent acquisitions, draft picks, anything that actually helped the team get better throughout the offseason. So first up, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, when it came to the Jaguars in 2021, as you see, they went 3-14. And I personally had a lot of hope for this roster and for this team because I felt like it was one of those talented teams. Urban Meyer was the head coach, and we all know how that turned out. And that was oh wow. I thought it was gonna be better than that, but I guess we learned more than we thought we knew. Like we thought we knew, but we had no idea. But scrolling down, starting off with their quarterback, Trevor Lawrence. We knew Trevor Lawrence, number one overall pick. That was cool. And then going to the running game, I think this was the biggest issue, is because I don't think they knew who their running back was going to be. Now, granted, they took Travis Etienne in the first round, and we never got to see him. So we get to see him in 2022. Hopefully, they get him back, and that's going to be interesting. But James Robinson was always the guy, I think, for a lot of people. A lot of people expected him to come in and have that starting role, but it seemed like he got off to a rough start, and they just didn't know, and they didn't really have an identity in Jacksonville when it came to running the ball. And then we move over to some of the receivers. Looking at their leading receiver, Marvin Jones, which was a free agent acquisition, I think he did them pretty well. I think he showed some signs of like a decent quarterback or a decent wide receiver, but I don't think because of the quarterback situation being a rookie and also the turmoil at the head coaching position, just never allowed the passing game to really take off. And that was what we seen. Laviska Shenault, we were expecting a bigger role out of him, but we didn't get. Same thing I would say for not Tavon. Oh, DJ Chark. But DJ Chark wound up getting hurt. That was a guy that I definitely was excited for, but I think he ended up having a severe injury at the beginning of the season, so we never really got a chance to see him. And then moving over to the defensive side of the ball, you see they had Miles Jack. Miles Jack was one of those staple guys of their whole entire defense, especially in the middle of the defense. And I mean, we're talking back when Jalen Ramsey was there, or AJ Bouye, and they had that crazy shutdown Jag defense. But looking at their lead in interceptions, you can see they didn't really have that many interceptions. Tyson Campbell being their leader in interceptions is not what you want to see, especially with some of the bodies that they had on their roster. There was guys that you were expecting a lot from, like Shaq Griffin. We didn't get to see a lot from him. I think they end up having, before they traded for Henderson, the corner, I want to say, right, from Florida. And so they had him, and I think they wound up trading him away. And so, like I said, defensively, I think they had a lot of good pieces there. Taven Bryan's a guy that I'm still personally rooting for, and yeah, C.J. Henderson, there he is. And that's Taven Bryan's another guy I'm rooting for. They have a lot of good pieces. Josh Allen, I think, showed up for a few games for them. Maybe led them in sacks. Let's see. I'm pretty sure he did. Yeah, led them in sacks at 7.5. But once again, we haven't seen him take that next level in his growth process. So hopefully he really, maybe this upcoming season, can get comfortable. Because like I said, when you have a team like the Jaguars that's talented, I think they really were a talented roster, especially up front on the offensive line. They had a really strong offensive line. I think an underrated offensive line. But when you have a team that's as talented as the Jaguars were, you never got to see the full blossoming of that talent just because at the top it was just too much turmoil and it just kind of trickled throughout the team. But moving on to the free agent acquisition or the free agency. Now, as you can see in free agency, they brought in Christian Kirk, which I think this gives them a good true slot receiver, and that's something they probably would definitely need and want there. It's interesting because now I'm wondering what's going to happen with Laviska Shenault because he's a really good utility guy, and they also got Travis Etienne coming back. So it's going to be interesting to see how they use all these weapons. Brandon Scherf, which is I think personally, one of the best guards in all NFL and really underrated at what he can do. Uh, Aluakan, I think this guy, I think I said his name right, but I think this guy was a baller for Atlanta. He ended up showing up and showing out for Atlanta, and he was a guy that I had no idea. I mean, when we think about Atlanta defenses, and especially me personally, we just think about them being completely a pushover. But this guy was a tackling machine for them, so it's going to be interesting to put him in this defense with a Miles Jack and see how this defense really start to move forward. And then Zay Jones, another solid big receiver. Evan Ingram, just on a 1 year prove it deal. I like that. Aiden Key, same thing. Get some quickness up front on that D line. And I think that's gonna be good. Gustis bring him back. Laquan Treadwell. I think they really start to. Hopefully Laquan found his role and found his niche, He was a guy that was really interesting. And then another guy that I'm not seeing on this list was Cam Robinson. I know there was a lot of back and forth between him and the Jags, but I'm glad they got that worked out because I think it allowed them to go into this draft, move forward into the draft with a lot of free range with that number one overall pick. Because a lot of people had them taking them tackle, myself included. But then once we seen Cam Robinson got locked in, it really made everything else easier for them to do. Speaking of moving on to their draft class, number one overall, Tavon Walker. Now, when it comes to taking him number one overall, I was indifferent about. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it, but I can definitely see why they wanted to go that route. I think they could have got a lot different routes there, but that, like I said, locking in Cam Robinson gave them that flexibility. And if they felt like Walker was the best guy for them, so then so be it. I feel like they definitely was one of those teams that had that. I always talk about luxury picks, and Jaguars didn't need a lot, so this was a luxury pick for them. If Walker comes out and becomes a beast and balls out of control, then win-win, right? Devin Lloyd, I think, was a very underrated pickup for them. Devin Lloyd, once again, another good sized linebacker in the middle of that defense that could run, that could tackle. Adding him with Oluokun and Miles Jack, it's just that linebacking core is going to be interesting. I like Snoop Connor at the running back position, another good, strong power running back. Gregory Jr., I think that's another guy that's going to be really interesting. Chad Muma, another good size speed linebacker. So this defense, and this was what's interesting, because the only thing I didn't talk about was them picking up Doug Peterson. This was interesting. We knew Doug Peterson as an offensive-minded head coach. Them picking up Doug Peterson and giving them the ability to really like focus in on offense and really build around Trevor Lawrence. I thought that's what the direction was going to be, especially going into that draft class. But getting Peterson and then having a defensive heavy draft like they did, and then having a solid free agency, because they didn't need much. And that was the thing, like we talked about, they're a talented roster, but having the free agency that they did and the draft that they have, but then bringing in Doug Peterson and still going those same avenues, it's really really impressive in my personal opinion. Like we like what we got offensively, but we just want to make sure our defense is a little bit more stronger, and I'm okay with that. They also brought in Press Taylor, who is also with Doug Peterson in Philadelphia, as you can see. I think that was really really important. Was he? So I guess yeah. He was in Indianapolis. I had no idea with that. I what? I didn't know. Okay, so Press Taylor gives him a chance. I didn't know anything about Press Taylor, so that's gonna be cool. And then we scroll down. Also, we can see they brought in Mike Caldwell, their defense coordinator, who was with the Buccaneers for some time. Actually, I think I ended up doing some research on him. I can't remember his history. It was either him or somebody else. Bob Sutton. I'm a big Chiefs fan. And so any of my Chiefs fans know Bob Sutton. He comes from like the Rex Ryan tree, that 3-4 defense. So that's going to be even more interesting. So I like some of their coaching. I like these new coaches that they brought in, these new coordinators. Doug Peterson for sure. Doug Peterson I think is an underrated signing as well, because I think he's going to allow that continuity and just that one voice at the top that's going to allow the team to flow as one unit, and that's what I'm expecting from them. So, with all that being said, I made this spreadsheet. Now, bear with me. I haven't changed everything, but I made this spreadsheet to kind of go through what I would project their roster to look like, and this is what I hope the Jaguars roster will look like moving forward. So we have at the receiver position, outside receiver position, as you can see, they got some good bodies. They got some decent receivers here. What I like to see out here is probably going to end up being Marvin Jones. We're going to put Marvin Jones on the outside. I think him and Trevor Lawrence are going to really start to build a connection and really build off of what they did last year and moving forward, and that's going to be really impressive. Ignore some of these names. I was messing around with some other teams, so I got to go through and switch every position. So just bear with me. We're going to run through it real quick. We're going to adjust the offensive line as well. I had Cam Robinson at left tackle, which I think is going to be the perfect fit. Now I don't think Sheriff played right guard in Washington, so I think we're going to leave Sheriff at right guard. So our guard possibly, who is going to be our guard? Maybe Walker Little. Maybe I like Walker Little, but he might end up being your swing tackle. He might end up being your swing tackle, and then Jawan Taylor. I might be wrong about this, but Jawan Taylor, we're definitely going to put a right tackle. We knew that. And then, like I said, Sheriff is going to be our right guard. I really, really like that acquisition. Okay, now my computer wants to go wild. Give me a second. Okay. So we're gonna have Sheriff at right guard, moving to center. Nick Ford. I for some reason the name sounds familiar, but it doesn't ring a bell right now. Then at left guard. This one's tricky because I'm not really sure who I want to pit here. I want to say Walker Little, but it might have been McDermott. It might end up being McDermott. Looking at what's here, I probably gonna go there. So this is just projection. Obviously, quarterback is gonna be Trevor Lawrence. That's a no-brainer. Now this is gonna be interesting too. Is the running back position? Now we have like Makari Sargent. I think he's a pretty good running back. James Robinson, we know about him. I talked about Travis Etienne being the utility guy. Snoop Connor. It's Connor. He reminds me more of like a James Robinson. So not James Robinson. James Conner. No pun. Are they related? Maybe they are. I have no idea. But that's what he reminds you of, his run style. But that I think realistically we're probably gonna be looking at ETN and Robinson. So we're gonna pick Robinson here for right now as a starter. And so that's gonna be our starting front right here. And I think that's a no-brainer. Obviously Eric Ebron at tight end. If he can stay healthy, can we get that slide? There we go. If he can stay healthy, Eric Ebron for sure. But Dan Arnold was actually a pretty good pick up there too. Uh, but it might, yeah. Looking at here, so we're just gonna go Ebron. I think Ebron hands down is gonna be our guy there. And then moving over to the other receiver positions, and we're going down. Marvin Hill's probably a possible thing there, but Christian Kirk, we talked about him playing the slot. And then we're gonna pick Christian Kirk there. Now this is gonna be the wide receiver two. I mean, probably gonna be Chenault or Laquan Treadwell maybe win this too. So that's a lot of flexibility there. But I like this receiving core right here as is. Treadwell, Kirk, and Jones at the one. I think that's going to be what we're going to be looking like there. And then if we flip it to the defensive side of the ball, now I think personally going to run a four. They're going to run a 3-4. That's what I think personally from everything I've done on all the research I've done. Uh, I'm gonna set this up as a 3-4. Right now, it looks like a 4-3, but that's because I've had an extra linebacker right here. So just bear with me for a second. So Gustus, and this is what I think they signed him for. Put him at the defensive line. You really be stout, and the way their defensive line is constructed right now, that's what you're going to be looking at. You're going to be looking at this defensive front just being a really stout run-stopping front. So Robinson Harrison might be a guy that we'd be looking at that position too. DeJuan Smooth is also another guy we could be looking at that position too. So these are guys that can possibly play that interior position, and I think that's exactly what they're going to be. They're just going to be really stout up front. So what we're going to do is I think I'm going to go with Smoot there. So these guys are going to be three. Ignore this Adam Gustus right here. Just bear with me. I didn't get it all. I didn't get it perfect. So that's going to be our front. These guys here. And okay, this is gonna bug me. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna fix this. All right, so we're back. Sorry about that. I had to. That was just bugging me. I needed to fix that. So I got not available here and here, so we can really shrink down this defensive front. As you can see, I think this is going to be a really stout front. Moving Josh Allen to outside linebacker is going to be the thing I see. Like I said, I have a feeling they're going to run a 3-4. That's just my thinking. Devin Lloyd's going to inside. I know they got him an outside linebacker here, but I think he's going to be an inside backer. And I thought they had Miles Jack this whole time. I really thought they had Miles Jack, and I feel stupid because I didn't do my research completely. But we're going to put Lil Khan there. So these are going to be our backs right here. And I think this is going to be really interesting. Trayvon Walker gives them a lot of flexibility with his size and athleticism. So that's really, really impressive to me personally because I'm interested to see how they're going to use him. Because they also had Caleb Von Chasen, who is apparently defensive end. It's all messed up. So he's apparently on the defensive line. So they got Chasen too, who's another wild card. Key, who's another wild card guy. Robinson Harris, who came over from Chicago, who's another good piece too. So they have a lot of good pieces here that they could possibly do with this defensive front seven. But I think out of the box, I think this is what we're going to get from that front seven. Like I said, Lloyd and Oluokun here. Also, maybe some Chad Muma. You can get some action from him as well. I don't know if they play him on the outside because they have him as outside linebacker. So they have a lot of guys in this front seven that's extremely versatile and they could play multiple roles. So I'm really impressive. I'm really impressed by that to see what they're going to do there. Now, so we scroll over to here. Now, this is going to be our number one corner. I don't. Usually I'm at this is like your number two corner, but for some reason I want this to be my number one. So we're gonna pick Griffin there. Obviously that's a no-brainer for us. We're gonna pick Griffin there at that corner spot. Looking at some of the safeties here, I was kind of unsure what they're going to do at the safety position, honestly, because when I really go and I scroll down the list, not a lot of guys stand out. Like Rudy Ford is an interesting prospect guy there. Cisco's my guy. I like Cisco. Hopefully he gets some play time this year. He's a guy that I was really high on last year. I called him Baby Earl Thomas, so I'm going to put him there. He might not get no play time, but I would like to see him get that play time at the free safety position. Moving over to the strong safety position. Now, when we look at our strong safety position, once again, I'm not gonna lie to you guys. Maybe like a Rashard Jenkins here, or Rudy. Like I said, Rudy Ford is another option too. Yeah, we're probably just gonna go Rudy Ford. And I didn't honestly looking at this, I did not realize how questionable their secondary could be. Henderson's another guy for them, so like I'm interested to see how they're gonna use these guys. I really am. But we're gonna go with that right now. Griffin, Cisco, and Ford. And then moving over here. Now, granted, I have a nickel here. So I got 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. That would give me 12 guys. So they're the base defense. I know I have a nickel here. So let's say, for instance, one of these guys come off the field, one of these D linemen come off the field, we'll go to a nickel package or something like that. What you could be looking at that in that situation is a guy like maybe Claybrook in that position, or then Franklin. That felt weird. You get Junior there as well. That's a possibility. So they got a lot of guys once again that can do multiple things in this position. So maybe we'll put Junior there for now, right? Maybe. I'm so confused. I'm just confused. I'm really confused. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I think Campbell might be a strong possibility there as well, and I like that too. So maybe we pick Campbell there. Maybe Campbell can go to inside. I know they like some things that he can do possibly, or we go back to Henderson. They did re-sign him for a 1-year deal. So this is gonna be open competition. If you're a Jaguars fan, please help me. Like I'm not gonna lie, I'm confused as hell as what they're gonna do in this secondary because I'm looking at some of these pieces and outside of Griffin and maybe Ford because I know Ford can give you some solid play. I'm unsure what they're gonna look like in this secondary. And I don't know if they're gonna run a base package or base defense where you're just gonna have your 3-4 in the defense, your 3-4 defense on the field all the time, or excuse me, or more linebackers. Um, yeah, I'm probably gonna get clowned on this one, but if you're a Jaguars fan, I'm asking for help. I'm genuinely asking for help. I have to go back and do some deep research and seeing what they're gonna look like. But this is what I project their defense and their offense to look like possibly. I mean, it could change easily, handily. Like it could easily be something different. So if you like it, give it a thumbs up. Let me know what you think. If you want to see somebody change in a different position, or if you will see a guy in a different position, definitely let me know. I genuinely believe that they deserve an A. They did a lot of good things this offseason, and really because they didn't mess up. Like they kind of did what they needed to do, bringing back Laquan Treadwell, re-signing Cam Robinson, and just kind of adding value to the roster that really didn't need a lot. Bringing in Doug Peterson, which is a veteran head coach, a guy that's going to give you some good play or good play calling and just hopefully help your young quarterback along and really give him the best chance to succeed. I like everything that they're doing in Jacksonville. I really believe it's an A. I believe their offseason was a strong, their free agency was strong. Their draft class was hella strong. And then really couple that all together with their current roster. It's making for a perfect storm. It's going to be a solid team that I think is going to be a tough out and then be a really competitive team. But that's all I have for you guys in this video. I'm sorry for all the cuts and jump arounds. I was not completely prepared for this, but that's what I got for the Jaguars in 2022. Now, do I have a prediction? I don't know what their record's going to be. I kind of ate crow last year thinking that they were going to at least go 500. So I'm going to leave that one alone. But I really do feel like they're turning in the right direction and they got a lot of quality pieces in place. But let me know what you think in the comment section below. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you're not a footballologist yet, I don't know what you're waiting on. Go on and hit that subscribe button and become a footballologist today. And stay safe, football fans.